Love that emblem.
Hold on. I can't see with my glasses. All right, welcome to the Thursday, February 24th, 2022 meeting of Rules and Policies. Jody, do you mind taking roll call?
Chair Katarina,
Here.
Councilor Sidas. Here. And Councilor Johnson.
Here.
Also present is Reem Gallagher, Assistant Town Manager, Councilor Don Hamel, Todd Sousa, Director of Community Services,
And two guests.
and two guests.
Ken, can you hear Tony okay?
If I string real hard.
Okay, I'll holler next time.
Okay. Approval of minutes, October 18th, 2021. I was not on the committee at that point,
But I did send a
so I
link.
can't.
None of us were. I did watch the meeting in preparation to approve the minutes, so I can make a motion to approve the minutes.
But I can't approve it.
And I second that because I did the same thing.
Oh, good. I'm glad
And
the
I
two of
can-
you know.
Just don't quiz me on it.
Okay.
Okay. And so I'll take the two votes you're going to abstain.
Yes, please.
Ms. Sider,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, now we have discussion items. First one is Chapter 302A, Committees, Boards Manual regarding Community Service Recreation Advisory Board we'll start with. And I'm going to toss this over to Mr. Sousa.
Thank you. So we have brought this proposal forward based on a recommendation from our advisory board. And we've gone through the process of bringing it to the appointments committee, who has backfilled our vacant spot. So, so presently we're at full status with a 5-person board composition as well as 2 alternates, so we're full. And part of our discussions over our last few meetings is how do we broaden our spectrum of people as we keep having growing interest in what we're doing. And so we have proposed our charge to change from a 5-person board to a 7-person board, keeping the 2 alternate positions, as well as adding 2 student representatives, and they would function just like the school does as 2 non-binding votes, depending on how the vote count came out. And they were mimicking the school board as well as a junior and senior and get some transition cohesion. Pretty much that sums up their request. They also, we talked about Community Service Advisory Board, because the recreation piece, I think, confuses people a little bit. And this board really is all serving for all divisions, senior, beaches, parks, in that realm. A piece that I just want to push out there for folks to understand, or just, they did have a lot of time in conversation around the composition of the committee.
Yeah.
Because there were discussion about making sure we had a balanced crew. And so rather than making the recommendation saying we need 2 parents, 2 seniors, a sports person, they just put a composition statement in their charge that just says this board should reflect a well-rounded, diverse representation of our community to best serve the interests of all. The selection of board members should strive to meet the intent of the statement. So when we go in front of the appointments committee to add members to the board, that then they would have that kind of in mind, whether they appoint based on who we have in front of us to consider, or to postpone based on how they feel that board is made up and, you know, the intent of that. And so that's pretty much sums up their request. It's, in my mind, it's only a positive. It brings more people involved into it, and then brings some students into it as well.
Mr. Johnson or Ms. Sider, do either of you have any questions or comments?
I don't. I love the addition of the 2 student reps. I think that that's a great way for them to get some service activity too, not just the benefit we get from the students, but I think that's of good benefit to the kids too. So that's great.
Ken?
No, I think it's a good job. And I'm sorry, Todd, you may have answered this. I just didn't pick it up. Again, it's when things come in front of the appointments NNC committee, I'm assuming you'll feed into us what is missing. Like if.
Yeah, that would be the intent, is that if we have a vacancy, that if we could then say, hey, here's the spot we're kind of looking for.
Yep.
To give recommendation for consideration at appointments.
Great, okay, thank you. No, good job, thank you. I definitely support this.
Okay, do have a question. I'm just curious, because I'm just getting onto this board.
Yep.
Is, not this board, I mean, the committee, excuse me, is why did they want to increase? What was the need for increasing the number of people?
We've just had a lot of people that have been asking for spots
Okay.
and wanted to take advantage of the kind of momentum we have. We've got a regular meeting scheduled set up. And simply, I think 7 gives them a chance to get a more diverse representation of the group versus we have a few longstanding members that bring great history to us and knowledge. But they've transitioned from being a youth sports parent to an adult to a senior. And so, you know, to be able to balance that committee up, they just felt 7 was better than 5. And it gave us a chance to add the students at the same time, just a bigger reach.
Okay, and I asked that just because I know the public, that may be a
Sure.
question the public has. And I also am happy to see student representatives on it because I think their voice is really important with recreation, community services recreation. So,
And we are trying to start a teen committee. Andrea, who's taken up some of our teen programs, she's in one of our childcare programs. At some of her teen nights, she's starting to recruit kids and starting to get input. So try to build another sounding board for them to go back and forth. So
yeah, cool. That's cool. And what would the committee like to do?
This
Do
committee,
we have a, yes?
I could make a motion to recommend approval of the Community Services Advisory Board
Recommendations?
recommendations be moved to the full council.
Do I have a
that
second?
motion. I second that motion.
Okay, and I would third it. Can we have a vote, please?
Could there be some discussion? Can I ask you a question?
Oh, yes, I'm
I-
sorry, Mr. Hamel.
No trouble. I did have one question about the student members. You mentioned they're supposed to be non-binding. So does that mean they're non-voting members?
no, so the way the school board, they get to vote, but if it became some sort of something that was tied to financial or policy and their vote put it in one favor or another, I think that's how the school board manages it, they would remove that count. So for example, let's say we were voting on a budget, giving us a recommendation, and the budget would something that would put their vote to make it, you know, if we had, this would be a 9-person board, 6-3 in favor of doing something, and their vote actually put you over the top of something, we wouldn't consider that a vote at that point.
So I have a question about that. I know that may be rules for the school board, but are those standard Roberts rules or is that, because I've never really heard of that before.
I can't answer that.
So I would have a question on that in terms of,
Okay.
you know, a need for that to be clarified.
But we're gonna send it to the council.
Yeah.
So,
But
okay,
And the other part too, just for clarification with the Rob rules, where their strictly motions are advisory, so there's really no weight, I should say that, physically, emotionally, and caring, there's weight, but as far as saying we have to do something,
right.
it's an advisory board.
Sure. So for consideration, potentially you could just have the wording indicate that the vote would be taken 7+2. And so at the school board, that's how our
Languages.
language is. And so when the meeting minutes are prepared, all of the votes are represented as, you know, the vote was 7 and then there's literally +2.
Okay.
But I don't believe we have that kind of language in the charter or anywhere in our ordinances in terms of voting. I'm not familiar with that at all on the town side.
Well, we could ask that someone research that and bring it to the
Right.
council.
I just want to make sure we're not agreeing to something that we'll have to have another rules and policies meeting to.
We won't.
Or some other thing. So there's that. Also, I had, so you're suggesting the committee, and I'm sorry I didn't bring these up before, but I read the thing one more time before the meeting and a couple of things popped up. Will you indicate that committee meetings will be conducted at the hub?
Yeah.
That to me seems precedent setting. Do we have any town council meetings that take place anywhere other than town hall?
Again, we could be, this can all be
Great.
worked
Okay.
on the council.
Great.
Those are great
So
I would say
questions for the
simply at the
council.
designated site.
Yeah,
Or wherever.
yeah, that's, I think that's a good point. I agree with
Yeah.
Councilor. I don't think we should be specific as to where the meeting is.
Yeah.
Location is.
Just saying regular meetings will be held.
We just cut this off the website
Yeah.
based on what we're telling the
Okay.
public, so it was consistent. It was
Yeah.
more of a charge, so if
No,
we want to
that's
put
a good
at
catch,
designated site and then educate that each time, I'm fine with that.
And then one more question, if you will, sorry to drag this out, is, so prior representation was specific. We had one senior,
No,
one
there wasn't
not-for-profit.
There wasn't any.
Not in there,
No.
am I reading that from someplace else?
That was what we had proposed when I brought this before to you
Oh.
months ago. It was as a suggestion of
Okay.
process. And
I'm
then when we
sorry.
met again, they didn't want to get that specific because how do you
They'll
handcuff
tie
the
you
appointments
in.
committee?
Great.
Okay.
I missed that iteration. I
Yep.
forgot about that one. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Lost my version control there.
Okay, all right. Are there any other comments from anybody? No. Let's move on.
Well, you can call a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. We have the vote, please?
Sure. Ms. Sider,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
and Chair Kevin.
Good to think my name,
Yeah.
huh? That's a yes.
Would you like me to make some suggestions for alternates before you bring it to council, or is that something that this committee will make recommendations for?
We're talking about actually.
Or changing that language,
Oh.
repositioning the language to say at designated
I would
location
say-
or 7+2, that could be clarification. I know that sort of stuff.
So would you like to charge staff of making those,
Yes,
researching those
please.
things, making
Yep.
those recommendations to bring forward to the council and next council package?
10-4. Okay.
Thank you.
That was easy. All right, the next one is Conservation Commission. And there's a request to consolidate Scarborough Conservation Commission with the Pest Management Advisory Committee. Could I have some background on that, please?
Jimmy, you want to provide some background to the committee?
Sure. We're going to go way back in time to 2019, and Tom Hall came to me as a result of a workshop held with council, where council requested that we take a look at committees and see where there may be some consistencies or overlap where committees could be consolidated or combined so that the town doesn't have quite so many advisory committees that we're staffing. And in looking at the committees that I was involved with, it looked like Conservation Commission and Pest Management Advisory Committee did have a little bit of overlap or complementary missions and charges. So over the course of, it ended up being 2 years with the pandemic delaying things, we met with members of Conservation Commission and Pest Management Advisory Committee to talk about the possibility of consolidation, worked through some draft language and changing the Conservation Commission charge and the town's organic pest management policy to work through how those two groups may merge to become one and still carry out the work that both groups had been doing for many, many years. And ultimately, this fall, both groups decided that it made sense to consolidate, and both groups voted to move forward with a recommendation to become one group and have the role of the Pest Management Advisory Committee be under the purview of the Conservation Commission. Your packet includes meeting minutes where both groups voted on that. And in addition, a memo from the co-chairs of the Pest Management Advisory Committee voicing their support for consolidation. And I will also say that while we've kind of been in this transition phase, the current and active members of the Pest Management Advisory Committee have been coming to Conservation Commission meetings and participating in their input and participation has been well received and is appreciated by the group as a whole.
Okay, thank you very much. Discussion between the members. Ms. Seiler or Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson's waving his hand.
I know it's in the packet. Thank you, Jamie. What was the vote on the PMC side to consolidate? Was it unanimous?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms.
All I
Seiler?
had.
No, I'm a little bit closer to this one because I'm the liaison to those two committees, and pest management has not met individually since I came on the council. It's been Conservation Commission with the pest management individuals joining those meetings. There was lengthy discussion about the consolidation and the change to their charge. Jamie has walked everyone through the process. I know she's been back and forth with legal several times to verify some of the details of the charge. I feel like this has been thoroughly vetted. It first went to appointments and negotiations before it is coming to us. And so I'm hoping today that this committee will make a recommendation to send this to the full council.
Okay, I'm gonna weigh in. I have some concerns about this, and I realize, that it's been worked on. And that the current members of pest management are saying they want this. This is not to say I'm not gonna move it to council, but my concern is, as the lawyers have said, there are very two separate and distinct sets of duties that occur with these two committees. And again, I hate pulling the I've been around forever card, but back in the day, pest management, when it was first set up, I know there was a lot of controversy and whatever about it, but I think they finally set up a way to work. And I just see their charges being very separate from what the Conservation Commission does. I was on Conservation Commission prior to joining the town council. But that being said, I certainly support sending it to the council for a vote. Do I have any comments from Mr. Hamel or anyone else who may be out there?
So I just had a couple of questions that were highlighted in the course of various committee meetings that led up to this, and both these committee consolidations came to appointments initially really for just purely staffing staffing requests. So it might seem like this is a bit of a detour, but I want to make sure that on ones particularly where there's a regulatory underpinning,
Right.
that we're not missing anything. So I know this has gone through extensive review and discussion, a lot of committee meetings, a lot of joint meetings already that kind of operated this way. But I would say that some of the, just because we can do something, that doesn't mean necessarily we should do it. I know that Phil Saucier and Lega's last comment was there's no legal reason that would prevent us from doing this. We have the authority to do it under home rule. So I mean, that's great, but we should still verify that it's going to accomplish the desired, intent of the framers, number one, but also that it's consistent with how the council believes it should operate on behalf of the public. So one thing I would say is that I was one of the folks that said we got to look at consolidation and try to make our committees more efficient. But then I also discovered as we were rushing through to fill positions that sometimes staffing is a separate task. And, so that we were trying to solve for just filling committees, and it was really another question that people were asking. So we missed that, and that's, it's something I take responsibility for. But we shouldn't, consolidation really, we shouldn't do that as a recommendation for staffing or quorum issues. We should make sure that we exhaust other measures, to get them up and functioning before we consider consolidation. So just that commercial. But I had several things I want to call out to make sure that we address these in a similar fashion to a couple of points we talked about with community services and rec advisory. So one is concerns about dilution or expansion of the statutory authority for the Conservation Commission. I think there's potentially a risk of it going, either way, either diluting what the conservation folks are doing or somehow over delegating the responsibility for pest management to another authority. So there's that one. There's also some inconsistency in terms of enforcement and recommendations, so that's something I think we need to look at in terms of who's really going to be responsible. and to make sure that we're not departing from the original intent of the state statute. There are some other things in there that are nits, like reassigning responsibility for maintaining a map of municipal property. You know, that's something may not belong in this combined committee at all. Maybe it belongs in planning. I don't know, but that's something I think also for the council to have some point of view on, perhaps with staff direction. Just a couple more. Sorry about the laundry list.
No, it's okay.
There is a question that was raised about potential expansion of the scope of authority to go beyond just municipal property to all property in the town. Phil flagged that and said that in the lease, we want to make sure we're clear on that. And I think that April also mentioned the committees have already been, meeting together as a group. They also included as part of the recommendation a staffing suggestion in terms of who they'd like to see where, and I would recommend that shouldn't be decided by the council, should go to the appointments committee back to the
Right.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Me too.
I know that review of maps, when I was on conservation, that was a review of a town-owned land. See what's the best use for it, whether it stays in conservation or recreation or whatever.
And I don't think that's been there. That's original language. I
Yes,
believe.
it is. That's original language. That's been there forever. Just as a side to your comment on maps. Is there anyone in the public? Oh, Todd, you
Yeah,
want to say
the only thing
something?
just to
Sorry.
comment on, one, just kudos to Jamie, because I serve PMAC and she serves conservation. She's really
Okay.
taken the lead on this and put it together, so kudos to her. Just to one of the I think that was just made regarding 3 of the members that are on the committee that are joining conservation on a regular basis are original pushers of the policy, the PMAC policy
PMAC.
from 11 years ago.
Yep.
And so their focus is honest and true. It's been, they're from that original group that got this together. And so that's why I think they vetted it so hard, because they were the initial leaders of that. In separate meetings and not so much in this last forum, we've had a lot of discussion around town-owned policies versus town-wide, and that is a much bigger discussion. And again, depending on who sits in which seat at which time, whatever flavor that turns out to be. So I know that was brought up, but I don't think that, again, that even if they have statutory authority, that Conservation Commission, excuse me, I have a migraine right now, is still a advisory board recommendation to council. So all those things still have to come through a larger format thing. So I do think they're all important to review and understand. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. Is there anyone else out there? All right,
Councilor Johnson.
oh, sorry, I didn't see you over there. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, we just wanted good points from Councilor Hamel, as always, he pays attention. So out of those points, is there any recommendation on some wording change before it goes to the council, so we don't rehash that, or, sorry?
I would say the same as I did for the other one, that that can be done even by council.
Okay,
Or staff, asking staff, but you have some input on what you're thinking? I'm putting you on the spot.
who was question 2?
What's that?
He said, who's the question to? Are you directing that question?
Oh, I'm
at him?
sorry, Ken. Yeah, I'm so used to being on Zoom all day that
You.
Ken, that's
Yeah.
you.
No, I don't have any recommendations. I was just wondering, with
Okay.
Councilor Hamel's comments, is there any need to adjust, the verbiage before we get to the council? And I think I just heard you say, we'll bring it forward to the council. Those can be expressed at that time and deal with it then. Is that correct?
Because it's gonna have to go through 3 steps through the council, so.
Okay, yeah, good point,
Recommendation,
good point.
yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
And I just have one last comment myself, and I'm gonna pick on Todd a little, sorry.
Yeah, good. Please do.
Todd did say who sits in what seat at what time, and that's my concern about this committee.
Yep.
Is who's doing what when? Are we doing conservation work or are we doing PMAC? So that's my concern, one of my concerns. So I just wanted to bring that forward.
And just so you know too, if I could, a lot of the work the PMAC has done, PMAC has really stabilized in the last
Right.
3 or 4 years with their mission, their goal. They've been doing a lot of outreach and education. You can see that by the book and brochure, things they're doing. They're really diving into the conservation, and they're into the point with the PMAC where it's like, how does it affect, stormwater, marshlands, all those things that tie into the conservation. So a lot of the things that they were looking at and setting for goals and work was conservation related. And so that's why when it got brought before Jamie and I a couple of years ago about bringing this group together, that's why they saw that there was a lot of overlap in some of their things. And so
And that's why you guys are gonna have to sell me on the council. Just saying. Dawn, you had something else?
Yeah, I'm going back to Ken's comments and questions there, but we had flagged, I know we went deep on this in appointments the last time we met, and I suggest that we huddle with staff before it just goes directly to the council, so we have some, possible revisions. For example, and I can't pick it out right now off the top of my head, but I know there's some language that was mandatory, language, that previously was different. So there's that, and there's also some other language in here in terms of talking about the town manager and the recommendation for. This was on the pest side, recommendation for certain things.
Right,
he gives the waivers if that's
Right.
part of the pest management policy.
Right.
We would make a recommendation as PMAC. In this model, conservation would make a recommendation for Tom to approve or deny. Again, it's still his ultimate, and that's the way it's
Right.
been since the
Yeah.
But I read that wording just didn't come across that way to me when I read it just before the meeting, but I just say.
So again, my suggestion is that, any counselor knowing that this is coming forward can meet with staff and come up with, we're going to say, I would like to amend this in this way or whatnot, but that's part of that process, in my opinion, when it goes to council. Look at Dawn. Okay?
I agree with that.
Yeah. Do I have a motion?
Sure. I move to approve the recommendation coming from Conservation Commission and Pest Management Advisory Committee for their consolidation, and would like to move that to the full council.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Do we have a roll call, please?
Steiger?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Yes.
That's unanimous, thank you.
And then, bear with me, I gotta scroll down. Number 3 is Cable TV Committee.
You want to try to tee that one up?
Yeah,
So
so tee it
this
up.
one was a late addition to the agenda. The last Communications Committee meeting, there was some discussion about bolstering our public access TV channel. We had a staff member join who talked about some ideas or thoughts he had on improvements that can be made to that channel, including possibly looking at new local programming and just some other ideas. And we understand that this is a committee that really hasn't been revitalized or has not been active in a number of years. I also know that there have been some discussions in the past about discontinuing it. So it sounds like the wishes of the Communications Committee is to relook at that committee assembly and possibly seek to have it revitalized. And Todd, this is another area that falls under community services. So I don't think that there was any specific, I think it was really just discussion, but Councilor Johnson can jump in here and offer anything he'd like to offer in this discussion. I think it's just bringing it to the forefront, and that's the direction it seems to be headed.
So I'm real confused because I'm looking at, I don't see anything in my notes to do with any of it, but that's all right. So I assume when you said Mr. Johnson, you're talking about Mr. Ken Johnson.
Yeah, I keep hearing my name, but so let me just chime in. We which is the next item, we're going to be changing the charge of the communication committee to be more engaged with the community. And in that topic, cable TV has come to the forefront. By the way, Todd, I think you were involved with that. The young man, Peter, that has been helping us with the communication committee, is a stellar resource, very creative, very optimistic, and willing to work with us. So that's just a shout out to him. And because this committee has not met for a couple of years, it was brought up, should we, reinstitute it, get it going again, disband it, fold it into somewhere else? I don't know. Is that what the line of thinking that came about this with Liam? Because I would like to fire it back up. We think it's an avenue of communication that's lagged behind a little bit, and we'd like to start utilizing that a little bit better.
So why is it in front of this committee, may I ask?
I think
I'll defer to Liam.
I think the point, I think it was just to bring it up as a discussion. This is under 302. I think there's a question about whether the existing charge for the cable TV committee is appropriate. So I think that in the exercise of revitalizing the committee, I think we may bring back or tailor the charge to be something that's more geared towards engagement, things like that. So it's just to bring it, we are meeting anyway, we don't regularly meet, but this would be something under 302A that may come forward for amendment.
Can someone bring up, because it's not in the packet at all.
Well, we could make it another agenda item for another meeting.
And I think that that was kind of the spirit of what the communications committee had said, Ken, right? Like we were meeting and we were talking about it anyway, and we were going to be bringing forward the communications charge, and we said, well, Ken and I double up on rules and policy too. So we would kind of bring this to rules and policy as kind of a heads up discussion. We were going to, we would have Todd in the room to be able to say, this is something that potentially has some new momentum behind it.
And so I did watch that communication committee too, and it was kind of like, how does the communication committee want to use it to then revitalize it, in what direction?
What I'm asking is, I'm not sure why it's here, because it's already in it. We've got a cable TV committee. If you're looking to change the charge, I don't know. That's just my question.
I think it was simply a discussion item. And to make sure all the committees were on board with where this is headed. It's more of an update, I think, than looking for any action from this committee at this point.
Yeah, but all right. I guess I come at it from a different. I like to see if something's in front of my committee, I want to know what it is we're supposed to be discussing, not just some general discussion. To me, the cable TV committee already exists, and if people want to revitalize it, that's fine. Or if they want to, I don't know, are they looking to change language? Does that need to come to this committee? Can it go straight to the council? I mean, this is why I'm like, what's going on here?
So we brought it forward as discussion, and you're the chair of this committee. So if you would like to move on, Jean Marie, go ahead and call the next agenda item.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
That's where we're at. We're just repeating ourselves.
We're conferring authority on the chair. That's
Let's go for it.
We did what we said we were going to do, so let's move on.
Right?
I know, but next time, give me something.
Small circle, 2 and 3 are on all committees.
Jeez, bro.
We'll be contacting you, Todd.
Yeah, just give me a shout.
And then the last one was changing the name of what? The Communications Committee? Just adding,
Minor changes to the charge.
I know.
But it is something that, again, falls to the purview of rules and
I
policy.
guess we're gonna have to change that again, but that's another. Jean Marie's opinion.
What are you going to call it?
The Communications and Community Engagement Committee.
I like it.
I mean, yeah, that's fine, but I don't know why it has to go through
Alignment
this.
and engagement.
It's been determined. I think it's been determined. I think it's just the prior chair's wishes that anything having to do with 100, 302, or 302A prior to going to council has to come through this committee.
Right.
Doesn't mean that there has to be a huge lift or a tremendous amount of work. That's the process I think we've established.
Okay, and that was the prior chair, right?
That was the prior chair. You want
And
to
we have a
shorten
new
the,
We have
chair,
a
right?
brand
if
new.
you want to shorten the process, we'll all be,
I'm not gonna put up,
point A to point Z, we're there.
I got other stuff to do at 5 on a Thursday. I don't
We have to do
think.
it, it's just we're
We got
trying to
3 hours
follow
of budget work to go.
Thank you, that's my point.
He just wants to, yeah, this is all a plot. He just wants a Good Morning Scarborough show.
This is my
Rejuvenating the-
point. Thank you very much.
We want to go A to Z, I'm good with going fast.
So,
Moi aussi.
it sounds like you're ready for a motion then.
Yeah, let's go. Move this.
No, I am.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
then I'd like to make a motion that we move the suggested changes by staff to the full council.
Second,
Can we have a vote?
Ms. Snyder?
yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Chair Katerina?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else got anything else? Please know, because Mr. Johnson has a 5:30, another meeting he has to be at. Oh, no, what?
No,
Okay.
I just do not see it on the agenda. Is there a bullet point for future agenda items?
No.
Okay, well, can I chime in?
Here
on future? And it's not pressing, but we have 302A, possibly take a look at it. This was brought forward to me by Rachel from Planning Board. And
Oh, geez.
right.
What?
Pardon me? No, it's just verbiage cleanup, because in the charge, it has the planning board responsible to drive the process for the comp plan. And when she took over the chair of the planning board, of course, she looked at the charge, and we had just come through the comp plan process. And that's really not how we operate. It's typically the long range planning with the assistance of the planning board. So it's just wording cleanup. We probably don't need a meeting on it.
No. To me, that's like almost ministerial, but, you know, who am I?
Well, it was brought forward to me by the chair of the planning board, so I just said that
Okay,
I would bring it forward.
I'll take that under advisement.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn. So
I second.
we have a roll call, please.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And Chair Katerina?
Of course.